So anyway, I'm here with Sandy Genarro. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I was like, it's Gennaro. Anyway, so anyway, we saw you actually last night. This is, like I said, we're at ROCKNPOD, but we saw you last night at the Mercy Lounge, and you were kicking it.
It was fun.
It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a really good time.
Thank you.
So I know, you were playing. See, well, how many songs did you end up playing last night? You were. Good Lord,
It was scheduled to be a 45-minute set. I would venture to guess around maybe 9 or 10 songs.
Yeah. No, it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was great.
Anyway, so what are you doing now? I know you were doing the Tummies, and were you doing some more recording with them?
Well, we're scheduled to. That's sort of like because everybody in that band has other projects.
Right.
So that's sort of like a catch as catch can kind of thing.
Sure.
So we did a record, and we're probably sometime in the fall going to do an album release party, even though the album was released in February.
Exactly.
With the COVID and everything like that, and people doing other gigs, Philip and Jeremy playing with Ace and this and that.
Right.
And Judd is out with a country band.
Right.
So we're thinking about the Basement East here in Nashville as a record release party because we all want to play.
Right.
But
Exactly.
unfortunately everybody's got to make a living in the meantime, so
Right.
everybody's on there doing their own thing in Nashville. But as far as the chemistry in that band and the material, I just love it.
Right. Well, you were on. Like I said, when you were on the show, we were on there, and you had everybody was on there. I think Jeremy didn't make it, and I don't think Phil made it for that show.
I remember that night. It was
Yeah.
me, Dana, and Judd.
Yeah. There we go.
I remember that.
But no, we had just got the album and listened to it, and it was fantastic.
Oh, it's
it was
awesome.
Great music.
It's awesome.
So what other projects are you working on now?
Well, I'm doing the Rock United thing.
Okay.
Which we played last night. It's basically a covers 70s, 80s cover band with the idea of playing corporate gigs and casinos. And then what's in the process now of doing another kind of all-star band with Stanley Sheldon, who played on Frampton Comes Alive, with Michael Stairtoe on guitar, who plays with Lou Graham, with Tommy Stevenson, who played with Gary Wright, and a double drummer thing with me and Joe Vitale, who plays with Joe Walsh and plays with the Eagles. And so we're doing like an all-star band, a singer that can sing all of our hits.
Right.
And the manager is a guy named Chris Crawford, who manages Paul Rogers, formerly of Bad Company.
Of course.
So and he's going to book us again in casinos and high-end gigs.
That's the thing about. I mean, that's what I love about Nashville. The talent pool in Nashville is very deep.
Sure is. The gig pool ain't that deep.
No, that's the problem. But I mean, last night, I know I was talking to some people last night, and they were talking about playing the guys from Resist and Bite, and the bass player, I was talking to him earlier, and he said, he goes, it was a tough show for him because not only was it, they were only their second gig. This was actually supposed to be their first gig, but they said he had a previous show in Ohio. But he says, I'm playing in front of people in this crowd. Not only are they music lovers and people that know a lot about music, but the musicians in the crowd. I mean, you're playing for.
Yeah.
If somebody's going to judge you, it's going to be the crowd that's going to do it. But they did really, really good.
Yeah, it was really good. Another thing I do for the last 5 years, I'm of the philosophy that when you're a good person and you reach out to people and you make everybody fortunate for that having crossed your path, magical things happen, unexpected things happen. You got to keep your eyes open for those things. But about 5 years ago, I threw a drumstick to a handicapped person in a San Diego arena, and the husband contacts me on Facebook the next day and says, "Man, you really affected my wife. Nobody ever pays attention to her because she's handicapped, blah, blah, blah. She was crying on the way home. She loves the drumstick, blah, blah, blah." Turns out that he's a motivational speaker, and he said, "Sandy, when I come to Nashville, I want to thank you in person." So I met him. Long story short, I told him how I got certain gigs or whatever. I went to his speaking engagement, and he invited me to speak at one of his subsequent speaking engagements to tell how I got Cyndi Lauper's gig in person, and he metamorphosized the lesson to corporate, how it applies to corporate and a leader of a company, how he treats his employees or whatever. And it resonated with when I told it live to FedEx. It resonated, and he said, "You know what? You have a career as a speaker, a corporate speaker," and that's what I've been doing for 5 years. That was the beginning of my career. Throwing the drumstick, doing something nice for somebody leads me to my another career as well as drumming.
That's an amazing story.
It is.
And it's one of those things that people don't realize. One little bit of kindness, you could change.
It could
somebody's
change your life.
I mean, you could have a person who may be suicidal or whatever and giving up, and you do one nice thing
Correct.
for them, and they're like going, "Holy moly,
Correct.
maybe my life's worth something."
Right. You never know. That's how I got Cyndi Lauper's gig. I paid attention to a fan 3 or 4 years earlier when I was playing with Pat Travers. We played in Connecticut, and I paid attention to the fan wanted an autograph and a picture when I was on my way out of the gig, and I was in a real big hurry. So I gave him the autograph and the picture, and he asked me to help him get a gig in New York because he was a bass player. And I said, here's my card. Send me a cassette of you playing. Here's my home address and number. This is 1981.
Sure.
He said he couldn't believe I was giving him my home address. I said, just send me a cassette of you playing, and I'll refer you. And he did. And nothing ever happened. But 3 years later, he called me and he says, I'm managing this girl now. I want you to join her band. Long story short, I went down to the studio to meet this girl reluctantly, and it happened to be Lauper when she was doing that first record. That was payment enough for that 5 minutes in the doorway with Dave.
Right.
But it turned out that in November of that tour, November 23rd, 1984, I met the woman that I'm still married to today. So if I would have blew that guy Dave off, if I was an arrogant rock star and blew him off, I would have missed that opportunity totally, and it would have changed the trajectory of my life.
Well, there was 2 opportunities. Not only a job, but you found the love of your life.
Correct.
How fantastic.
It's awesome, man. And that's a lesson everybody should take. If you take one thing out of this podcast, it's like you never know when your life is going to change because you help somebody. Or like... Yeah,
just a random act of kindness.
A random act of kindness without thinking about what you're going to get in return. That's
right.
the key. And the universe sees that, and he places opportunities in front of you as a reward. It's a cause and effect situation.
Right.
It's not opinion. It's fact. It's a law of the universe.
And that's something that we've talked about on our podcast for the last 6 years that we've been on here. We've had a lot of people like you and other stars and people that as grown up we were fans. I mean, super fans of a lot of you people. And then we find out after having you on the podcast, you're just like us. You get up in the morning, you put your socks, your shoes
Big
on.
time.
And then the thing is I think people like when you see these people and you have their posters on the wall and you listen to music, you think, oh, they don't have time for everybody. But the thing is, they're just like us. I mean,
absolutely.
It's just, and that's something that this podcast has proved to me. And that's why I think we do good as far as because we have conversations. This is not an interview; it's a conversation.
Correct.
And that's what I think they like that.
And yeah, they do like it because everybody's human, man. Nobody craps Haagen-Dazs. Everybody puts on their trousers or socks one leg at a time.
Right.
And what people miss the point is that people are going to remember us by the way we made them feel. Okay,
exactly.
Nobody's going to want their checking account balance on their tombstone. Okay, it's basically how you made other people feel. Nobody's going to think about you, about what you did for yourself. It's going to be what you did for them or how you made them feel. And that's the thing, man. And unfortunately, people don't realize that until they're older.
Right.
They're so hung up in making a bunch of money. Well, you know what? That stays here when you're pushing up daisies. You're going to leave it to the, it's like...
And they usually find out too late.
That's correct.
And they don't have time to correct it. There's always, I've heard this, and I had a friend of mine actually had it tattooed on him the other day, but it was that thing is, your gravestone has your birth date and your end date, and that dash in the middle.
Big time.
That's what it's all about.
Perfect. That dash in the middle.
I mean,
it's what you do.
Best of that dash.
And when you advance the lives, business lives, personal lives of your friends, of your family, of complete strangers, things are placed in the path that are going to change your life, and that's what you're going to be remembered for.
Fantastic. So anyway, the thing was, we had you on our show the last time when we were talking about the Tummies. We were talking about your time with Pat Travers.
Right.
And I mentioned this a little bit ago before we got on, but I didn't realize that on the Black Pearl album, which you were on, the La La song was on there.
Love You.
That is my fucking favorite song that they did. And it wasn't until after we got off the thing I was like, well, hell, I could have talked about that.
Right.
So talk about it a little bit, because it was picked up for Valley Girl. It was on the soundtrack. Was that song? I mean, can you talk about it a little bit?
I remember recording that came off the Black Pearl record.
Right.
And at that, the thing I remember about the rehearsing for that record is that we rehearsed in Quad Radio Studios where we recorded it. And Pat was going through a managerial change at that time. So we were advised not to record anything until the managerial situation was settled, because Pat didn't want the ownership or whatever, the old manager, to have a part of that record.
Right.
So the new manager was Doc McGee, by
There
the
you
way.
go.
And
Wow.
so we had a chance to rehearse those songs from the Black Pearl record for a long, long time before we recorded. The pre-production for that was a while, not because we needed it, but because we had to wait for the legalities to sort itself out. But the thing I like about that particular track, I La La Love You, is the simplicity of the drum track. And it's basically, it conforms to my whole philosophy, where a drummer or an instrumentalist should serve the song. You're not serving yourself. You're not serving the drumming community. You're serving the song, and you're serving the vocalist.
Right.
And to me, the simpler the drum track, the more wide appeal it has, because common people, non-musicians, are able to latch onto it. If you listen to the most popular songs ever, they got the simplest backing tracks because they're accessible to the common person, to the people that are not not musicians.
Sure. I mean, look at the Beatles.
Well, there's the case in point right there.
I mean, like I said, you don't have to hit 100 beats. You play the beat.
That's correct. You don't get paid by the note.
Well, I'm surprised though that song wasn't a radio hit, because, I mean, I love that song. For some reason, I remember, like I said, I had heard it before, but Valley Girl is one of my favorite movies from the '80s, and when that song comes on, it fits that scene. It fits there, and it's just such a rockin' tune. I mean,
absolutely,
it's got a great.
It's a great
beat.
Little riff. Pat wrote a great riff to that, and Pat. What I liked about Pat was that he allowed a lot of freedom in the band to create. Because he realized that it's not all about him. Because that's why you hire a bass player and a drummer, because their idea might be something Pat hasn't thought of.
Right.
And there's certain things that happen in that track and on that record that he allowed to happen that basically make the record.
Right.
So you never know.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Sandy, we sure appreciate it. Like I said,
appreciate
I know
it
it's
too,
been
man.
short for this, but we'll definitely have you back on our show again, I'm sure, because we just love talking to you. And
anytime.
What an inspiration. And like I said, I love your philosophy. I like the way your inspiration about stuff, and just, everybody go out and do it, a random act of kindness.
That's correct.
There you go.
Without looking for anything in return.
Exactly.
And the universe will take care of your butt.
Well, God bless you.
All right.
All right.
God bless
All
you
right.
too, man.
All right,
Thank
we'll
you
see
so much,
Thank
man.
you.